Good evening, Red Star Rebels. It's September 22nd, 2022. This is Season 2, podcast number 27, and we are Red Star Report. I'm Hal G. Lohr, and this is Voices for the California Nation. For those in need of a reminder, midterm elections will be Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. That's just 7 weeks away, and no matter who you ask, right or left, all the experts are saying the same thing. This election cycle is a battle in the ongoing fight for the soul of America. Funny, they still want to pretend that America still has a soul. Okay. Anyway, both sides know that midterm wins will set the stage for a 2024 presidential victory. Both sides openly stating that nothing in America will ever get better unless their side finally crushes the other side once and for all in the 2024 presidential elections. Because this time, it really, this time, is the most important election of our lifetime. Hard stop. And only through the 2024 victory, while with the absolute mandate of a razor-thin margin, in a somehow justifiably rigged election, can the winner completely strawman blame the loser for the last 50 years of overall U.S. policy failure. A glorious I told you so moment that makes it possible to shove the political philosophy preferred by the winning side's donor base for America's decline down the throat of the losing side. Because everyone in Washington, in the political bubble there, knows that this time it will finally work. This time, magically, the public embarrassment of forcing the evil opposition to see how wrong they really are won't just make them feel more pissed off, driving us closer to a second civil war or anything like that, but will finally heal America's cultural and political divides and make us all good friends and neighbors again, right? Because, like, fully half of America will wake up and snap out of it, asking themselves, what was I thinking? Have to ask, how many times are we, as Californians, going to fall for this fantasy? Because as I see it, the real joke here is that the very same Californians deluding themselves into thinking this America will come together in the end is as a possible thingy are the same people who think California independence is the impossible thingy. Boggles the mind. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are important local races and California ballot propositions to consider. Red Star Report will be discussing these over the coming weeks, especially as we get closer to November 8th. And of course, I know everybody watching and listening to this podcast have already registered with the California National Party. Right? But can anybody pretend they haven't noticed that, to all intents and purposes, they're just not, or there just might not be the United States anymore? I mean, red state governors are acting with open hostility to blue state governors. Is that united? A pregnant woman, a gay couple, a person of color, or an immigrant worker traveling in a car across America has different levels of human rights from state to state, where a gun traveling in a car across America has guaranteed Supreme Court protections from state to state. That your definition of united? Don't get me wrong. Voting and elections are important. But I think as we approach these midterm elections, it's important for the people in the California independence movement to remember when talking to people who don't necessarily support California independence, the issues that Californians can actually affect for Californians by voting in California would still be here after independence. That wouldn't change. It's the U.S. issues that Californians can't affect. The issues that without independence, red state America will force down the throats of Californians in California that Californians really need to consider before 2024. Is that where Californians want to be? Because with California independence, that can change. This is Voices for the California Nation. Continuing with comments on our theme of recognition of sacred land and Indigenous people, we have a new Red Star Rising with Matt Owen. Tonight, Matt highlights the idea of a California Indigenous Congress being a critical part of the California independence movement's ideals and goals. So, let's go to Red Star Rising with Matt Owen.
Hello again, everyone. Today is the day after Mexican independence, an independence without which California's own independence would have been inconceivable. In 1821, the entire North American portion of the Viceroyalty of Nueva España, New Spain, was made independent under the rule of Agustín Iturbide, its putative emperor. By 1824, the Mexican people had had enough of that and overthrew him and established Los Estados Unidos Mexicanos, the United Mexican States, which in 1824 also granted independence to Central America, which subsequently fell apart into 5 states: Guatemala, Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Costa Rica. They didn't, however, grant California independence, a missed opportunity in my view, because if they had, due to our sparse population at the time, we probably would not have fallen apart like Central America did. This is why Central Americans celebrate their independence very close to Mexican independence. They're very closely bound up together. So, Viva Mexico, Viva Gran California Libre. Let's dig deeper, as was done in the last edition of Red Star Report, which focused on Indigenous Californians and their triumphs and their difficulties. What do the 3 things that were mentioned in that Red Star report all have in common? Yes, the return and protection of sacred Amamutsan land in Gorastak, the competing claims of the Quiche and the Tongva, and of course the 2 ballot propositions on gaming in California are all being done in non-Indigenous settler colonial governments. Where is the Indigenous authority that could put all of these concerns before our Indigenous Californians where they belong? Hence the proposal for a California Indigenous Congress, Congreso Indígena Californio, modeled on the Mexican Congreso Nacional Indígena, and also taking into account the successes and failures of the Soviet Union's Soviet of the Nationalities, which was supposed to have the same authority in indigenous matters in Russia, hence the Soviet Union, hence the fall of the Soviet Union. California doesn't have the problems that Russia had on the eve of its revolution. California can succeed where the Soviet Union did not. California can have its own indigenous fundamental branch of government, thus realizing the goal of a truly plurinational republic. Viva México! Viva Gran California Libre! Viva el Congreso Nacional Indígena! Viva el Congreso Indígena California!
That was Red Star Rising with Matt Owen. For more information on the California independence movement and its dedication to the rights of California's indigenous communities, Red Star Report suggests you go to the California National Party website at californianational.party. That's californianational.party. And check out the party platform. You will find the CNP's California Values Indigenous Rights Platform Statement on page 9. Under Civil Rights. Shocking. Surprise, surprise. Activism in Action with Shankar Singham is taking this week off, but don't worry. He'll be back next week with brand new interviews, and you don't want to miss it. Good stuff. But for now, time for talking points. This is Talking Points. The Queen is dead. Long live the Republics. At least that's what they were saying a week ago after Queen Elizabeth II had passed away. And speculation about King Charles turned some media outlets to revitalize the question of independence movements inside the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. But since then, the conversation has gone quiet again, as the American news cycle refocuses on Donald Trump's legal problems, Joe Biden's COVID pandemic comments, and the threat of World War III being started over the 7-month-old conflict in Ukraine. Face it, the American news media has the attention span of a mosquito, so what did you expect? Because in the end, as far as the Scottish independence movement, the reunification movement in Northern Ireland, and the Welsh independence movement are concerned, to speak about a few, the state of the English monarchy just isn't their primary concern. So they continue the good and peaceful work toward the independence goals on their own timetable, and that's as it should be, by the way. Because, long story short, these movements have good intentions and want the best for their people. No downside in that. And the California independence movement can recognize and even learn from independence movements with common goals like liberty and self-rule as kindred spirits. Which brings us, unfortunately, to tonight's talking point. A cautionary talking point that warns us to beware. Independence movements are not always benevolent. You see, as much as the California independence movement would like to embrace global independence movements around the world, we need to do our research. We need to be aware that not all independence movements are created equal. We need to do our homework before the California independence movement makes statements of support, before we lend out some of our independence movement's political credibility. because the overall California independence movement has already been burned by bad faith actors on this. Remember this from February 21st this year? That was 7 months ago, almost to the day, when Russian assets of the group Yes California, posing as leaders of the California independence movement, categorically tweeted these statements. Reminder that the California independence movement has been in contact and maintains relations with the now independent Donetsk People's Republic. That was news to me. While Vladimir Putin is making a decision whether to recognize Donbass and the independence of Donetsk and Luhansk from Ukraine, the independent Republic of California also deserves recognition as an independent state. Hashtag CalExit. Yeah. Like Californians give a fuck what Vladimir Putin thinks, right? And then the Independent Republic of California and the California Independence Movement join Russia and Syria in recognizing the independence of Donetsk and Luhansk from Ukraine. Yeah, weird. And just, no. I don't remember anybody ever calling a vote on that either. But there it was on Twitter in black and white. And all too easily believable that the California independence movement could make a statement of support for some obviously illegitimate Russian puppet independence movements. And honestly, one of the many reasons why Red Star Report and the California independence movement in general are phasing out the hashtag CalExit. Call it toxic baggage. Now fast forward 7 months. And these Russian puppet so-called independent nations many in the independence movement actually hoped could have had some honest intention to actually become free and independent nations, announced planned referendums for September 23rd through the 27th for the Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic to drop all pretense of independence and become part of Russia forever. Not exactly the kind of move that people who were really seeking self-determination would make, but like I said, independence movements are not always benevolent. So, as members of the legitimate, and by legitimate I mean the not Yes California as a Russian puppet, but the real grassroots California independence movement, we need to see this as a cautionary tale. A real-world example that there are political forces in the global community all too happy to subvert our California independence movement to advance their shitty little agendas. And to make matters worse, plenty of soulless people closer to home perfectly willing to drop to their knees and pucker up to facilitate them. The enemy of my enemy is not always my friend, even if he is willing to toss me 30 pieces of silver. There's a reason organizations like the California National Party don't accept foreign money. Independence movements are not always benevolent. Now we know. Lesson learned. Class dismissed. This is Talking Points. Well, that's it for this week. For more information on Red Star Report, check out our website at redstarreport.com. Go subscribe to our Red Star Report YouTube channel. Go to our Red Star Report Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. Give us a like, give us a follow. Because if you want to support the real California Independence Movement's media group, it's all about the algorithms. That means you. Our thanks to our Red Star Rebels for watching. We are Red Star Report.